I'm going to talk to you a little bit about green building and sustainable architecture. So make sure you have your Google Doc notes created so that you can add notes to this for use later on. And these are the things that we're going to take a look at. Sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it's basically the practice of creating buildings or products and methods of building that respect the environment and other humans. Sustainable design, the goal when designing a sustainable building is to create a structure that operates in harmony with the environment and its occupants. Natural resources are carefully considered in all phases of the structure. So careful consideration is given to the following: water, energy, building materials, solid waste, and all of these things were considered with the remodel of Centaurus as well. So some of the principles of sustainability in architecture: economy of resources, to reduce, recycle, reuse natural resources; also life cycle design, that there's a structured methodology for the building process. Life cycle design, that kind of means that architects will consider using maybe better materials that may be a little bit more expensive, better insulation, maybe putting in solar panels, so that over the entire life cycle of the building, there's actually a savings in energy consumption. And then humane design is harmony between humans and nature, which is considering things like natural light coming in, so you're not always working in the dark, or good ventilation, things like that, all as part of the design to make it just a more comfortable working environment. Also maybe considering integrating public transportation or things like that. The different phases for a building life cycle are pre-building. So architects have to consider how the materials affect or impact the environment, like harvesting of trees in different areas, or mining of resources, like where they want to get their resources and how it can disturb the environment, including the actual placement of the building. Like you maybe, for example, wouldn't want to build a building right on top of, like wetlands or something like that. And then building phase, again, they consider the carbon footprint, all of the machinery and everything that it takes to actually put it together, and all the labor and all the hours, and operating costs. And then post-building phase, what are you going to do with all the old materials? In some cases, they can become resources for other buildings. So post-building would be when the building is like decommissioned, or when it collapses and falls apart, if they have to disassemble it. What's going to happen to all of those? Are there dangerous materials that have been used that are like kind of contained within walls that then you have to figure out what you're going to do with them? So those are the different phases for a sustainable building life cycle. If we look a little bit more closely at the pre-building phase, you'll see that some of the things to consider are site selection, building design, material processes, and including even the installation. So some of these you might want to note. Also examining the environmental consequences of the structure's design, orientation, the impact on the landscape and the materials used. All those things need to be considered when looking at the design phase. In the building phase, the things considered are construction and operation processes to reduce the environmental impact of resource consumption. So as you're actually constructing this, it's really trying to make the building phase more efficient. And then long-term health effects of the building environment on its occupants are also considered. So you can see this one has a lot of natural light, and there's reasons for making a building appealing to the occupants as well, that we'll talk about in just a second. And then post-building phase, what happens to the old materials when they have to be returned to nature? What's going to happen to these things? Can they be recycled or reused, or are they just put into a landfill? Currently, the landfills comprise about 25 to 40% of their volume is construction material. So it's a huge amount. And that's why this is something that now architects are really trying to take into consideration. Preservation of natural conditions: an architect should minimize the impact of building on its local ecosystem. So note that you're trying to, and a lot of buildings will, or designs will try to actually incorporate the environment into it a little bit more without sort of destroying it, or even planting additional plants and trees around it to try to bring up that greenery around the buildings. Human comfort. So this is the reason a building's design should enhance the work and home environment. So this can improve productivity, reduce stress, and positively affect health and well-being. So this is kind of a big reason for having natural light, good ventilation, all those things that are all part of the design plan for the Centaurus remodel, because it increases productivity. It makes people feel better about actually being in that building, which is really important. That's, if you don't want to be in the building, what's the purpose of the building in the first place? So different types of green and sustainable buildings, you can have them as homes, schools, which is every new building in Boulder Valley School District, that's something that they consider, is how to make it a green and sustainable building. Also commercial and public buildings could be like city buildings, courthouse, things like that, labs, and healthcare facilities. So there's also sustainable remodeling. So existing buildings can remodel and install improved mechanical components, like maybe boilers or furnaces or hot water heaters that may be like the instant hot water heaters rather than the tanked hot water heaters, things like that that can help make a building green and consume less energy. We have solar panels on the roof of our school, so that's another way that our school is trying to do that. So these are the things that we covered in this, and now it's your turn to do some research.